Hi, this is Bennett Santana, and I want to welcome you to the GoldMind Business Podcast, where we empower you to transform, scale, and thrive. Again, I'm Bennett Santana, and today we're going to be diving into our first step of creating a personal power plan. And the one thing I'd like to help you do is gain clarity in this podcast. And so, today I was just reading, a proverb as a lot of times these proverbs lead me to really create the subject of the podcast. And so today's proverbs that really touched me was a man's heart plans his ways, but the Lord directs his steps. And so it talks about a man's heart. And in that reference of the Bible, a person's heart really meant everything. It's just not this physical heart that you would hear about, so many times, where you want to have an experience of God in your heart. But the word in the Old Testament, that heart basically was the center of all intelligence, of your will, your emotion. So it talks about your heart, it plays everything. Your emotions, what you desire, what you want. These are the things that what your thoughts, what you're thinking about, what you're doing. That's the heart. And it says it plans his ways. So plan is basically a word that talks about fabricate or weave. And so if you think about weaving a garment, it takes some detail to put together. But the one thing I want to share with you is that there's a signal that we're getting from the heavenlies. And it says that we could create our destiny. How is that? You got to think about that God gives us the ability to decide where we want to be. And this is very instrumental. I grew up in Gary, Indiana. It was at the time, a very working class city, and it went through a time of just pure. There was a big loss with the steel mills laying off folks, and I basically said I want to get out of there, and one of the things that I read was like you could write your future narrative of your life now. And I took that to heart, and that's what drove me to get to what get to school, start a business. That was all the thing that the emotion that I had by writing it down. And I just want to say to you that God basically saying that you could create your future now by just planning, and He'll direct every step. But He wants us to be interactive with that future, interactive with our destiny. And one of the key places is that you plan, you fabricate it. And what I encourage you to do is that you start to write that down. And so, my question is, have you ever been like overwhelmed by the priorities of life? So, and you get all this stuff that comes through the social media that takes our attention, and we just get fragmented. But I want to share with you, and I do this, I've been doing this since 1992, is writing my goals down, writing down my purpose every year, and I review it multiple times a year, and I've actually helped people, over thousands of people, write their goals to help them, especially around the Christmas time. It's a great time for you to kind of lay out what you'd want for the next year. And so one of the things is I want to help you get to true clarity. And true clarity comes from two things. Really, it's very easy. It's knowing what you want and knowing what you don't want. And that's a simple thing. If every person knew exactly what they wanted and what they didn't want, your mind would just move to what you want. It's like and I think Tony Robbins talked about it, is that we're like driven between two things. One is desiring that we want to go to good and we'll move away from bad, right? That's how we are. We are been programmed that way. And so one of the things is if you read Psalm 37, it says, delight yourself also in the Lord, and he will give you the desires of your heart. And one of the things is you connect to God. It's okay to have desires of your heart. There's nothing wrong with it. And when we align our desires with God's will, we'll get clarity. Not only clarity, we get confidence, and we move forward, in that in faith. And so in this podcast, I want to cover like 5 steps to clarify your purpose and to craft a personal life vision that will empower you with purpose and impact. Now, there's no perfect thing here. I'm not saying that you're going to be, created perfect, but at least you have a couple words that could guide you. You could always modify it. And so the 5 steps to the clarity process is it starts out with knowing your true desires. And so here, let me just start out. Finding clarity in things is really the foundation of understanding, right? A lot of times things get mucked up. And so that's what I want to do with this podcast. So really, step 1 is, what do you truly desire in life? That's my question to you. And I suggest you take just take your journal. I like to buy the big records journals, the accountant journals, and I'll write down, and I'll start out my journal there. And so what I suggest is, today in your journal, just say, what do I truly want in life? And I would basically write down, at least, if you really want to have an exercise, 50 things that you truly want and desire in your life. And you just start out and be free to write down what you want. And in Proverbs 10:24 says, the desires of the righteous will be granted. And there's nothing wrong with asking God for your desires. I met a young man, very wise man. He's very successful today. I hope to have him on the podcast. And as a young man at 18 years old, he told me, hey, Bennett, tomorrow's your birthday, and I want you to get up early in the morning and write a list to God of everything you want in life. And you just ask God to give you that for your birthday. And I was blown away by the wisdom that young man had. And I've done that many times. And something that you could do on your birthday is just get up early, write a list of everything that you want. Everything. I mean, no hold barred, right? It's like your health, finances, your relationships. That's what and just present those to God. And so that's step number 1, is really, what do you truly desire in your life? And write down this list of everything from personal aspirations to material possessions. And I want you to kind of, when you write it down, invoke your emotional side, invoke your will, your intellect, your emotion, the whole heart. Invoke it when you write that down. And then be free, because sometimes we kind of limit ourselves. We limit ourselves to what we truly desire because of, we've seen lack so much. There's an example, I share this a lot, where you'd have a water tank with a piranha. You throw a goldfish in that piranha would just eat that goldfish all day, until they're, we used to do that in college, where we had a guy had a piranha, and we would just, it's 5 o'clock feeding time. We throw that goldfish in, and sometimes he would chop on it, sometimes he wouldn't. But most likely in the morning, it would be gone. And so they found that if you put a piece of plastic in between the piranha and the goldfish, that piranha would try to hit that plastic, and it wouldn't, it would hit it all the time. And then eventually it would just stop hitting it. And so what they did was they pulled that plastic out, and you know what? That piranha wouldn't eat that goldfish. And a lot of times when it comes to our desires, it's that we've been pushed down so much that we've been, one of the things that I want to share with you is, in the inner city, you never see a sunrise or a sunset. It's very hard to get a perspective. That's why it's good to see the sunrise of the lake, and it's good to go see the sunset to give you perspective and vision. that, you know what? It's not these little walls that define who we are. There's a bigger world out there, and it starts in your vision and being free with it. And that's what I want to say is just write down what you truly desire in life. You know, all the things that you want. You know what? I want to go to school. I want this in the bank. I want this kind of car. This is what I desire. I want this health. I want to buy a house for my parents. I want to write down these things that you desire, and write down at least 50. I push people. I have them do like I want kind of lists, and I ask them to write 100 things because a lot of times you can't even get to it because we're just so, we never think that we can have those desires, and so everything in my life has always started in a desire that I wrote down. And I want to share with you, where do you see this in the Bible? If you go to the story of the Tower of Babel, these men and women, they found a plane, and then they said, let us build a tower. And they didn't have stones, so they were going to mix brick, and they didn't have mortar, and they're going to use, I don't know, tar. They came up with the way to do it. They hadn't built it, but God recognized it as already being built. And in life, everything's built 2 times. Everything built. Your house is built from an architectural standpoint first in a design, and then it's implemented. And that's how life is. You have to design it. You have to design it so design it first. And it starts with desire. It starts with desire. The second thing is you need to write what you don't want in life. And you got to get clarity and write those things down, because those things that you don't want in life actually drain your energy and they distract you from your purpose. And a lot of times those things that you don't want in your life is triggered in fear. There's so many people who are like germaphobes or this or that, and they're engulfed in fear. And you know what happens? They get sick, right? They get sick, and they just, we saw that during the COVID process, right? Someone who'd cough in Walgreens, oh my God, you'd run from them. And so these are things that, just simple, hey, identify them. When I had a chance to, I bought a boat near Cleveland. I was a kayaker, and I just buy this huge boat, a 36-footer twin-engine boat, and I'm going to take it around the lake. Lake Erie, Lake Huron, Lake Michigan, on my first try. And that day when I get on that boat, I'm actually shaking. And I looked at the next, I had the seat in the helm and the next seat there, and I said, fear, just buckle up. I know you're there. We're going to go anyway. And so that's the thing is that you got to realize is that, a lot of times there is some fear involved. And you know what? You can just acknowledge it. It's all, we were built that way. Flight, fight. And so write down what you don't want in life. Write down a comprehensive list of negative habits, of toxic relationships. I want you to invoke emotional, strong negative emotion when you do this. And write down at least 25 of those, things. Just pour it all out on a piece of paper. We could burn that paper later if you'd like. If it has so much there, we could go through that exercise. But I want you to do those 2 lists. 1, what you desire, and 2, what you don't desire. Step 3 is that I want you to prioritize, at least for right now, I want you to prioritize between 5 to 7 of the things that you want in your life, and just kind of rank them. 5 to 7, I think, is a good list. Sometimes you do 3, but I honestly tell you, you'll get the biggest gainers when, in the 4th item, 5th item. That's how it's been in my life. That sometimes I'll have 4 or 5 goals, and you know what? Goal number 5 pops up and it gets done. And so I want you to circle, go back to the first list, and circle, I say 5 to 7 of the desires. And the ones that you don't want, you don't desire, circle 3 of those. And On the first list, I want you to identify, what are the biggest hindrances to you achieving that? What's your biggest hindrances? And I want you to start thinking about, removing the barriers. And this would be basically taking another sheet of paper and saying, hey, just rewriting what you desire. And what are my barriers? You just put your barriers on one side. What are my barriers to it? And a lot of times we have these these fake barriers. I need money to go to school. I need this, I need that. It's like a young lady that I saw at church one day, and I said to her, she had a young daughter, I believe at the time, and struggling with getting work and so forth. I said, you need to go to college, and you need to take a loan out, even if you need to get a college. Go get a loan. It's a lot of folks will buy a car. I can't believe how cars are now $2,000 a month, right? These are things that we're spending money, but yet folks won't even think about spending money on themselves in college education. Well, that young lady, she went and got a bachelor's degree. She ends up getting a great job with the Chicago school system, and works in the administrative office. And she thanks me. Every time she says, "You gave me a direction. You gave me a direction, and that direction changed my life." Where I just pointed the way. And a lot of times, I will tell you, listen to the prophets and you shall prosper is a scriptural term but I think the world speaks to us many ways into where we should be going. You're good at that. Hey, you know what? You'd be good at this. You'd hear that a lot. You got to take note of it, right? You got to take note of it. A young man yesterday I saw, in church, and I was praying for him. He was tall. First thing I said, you're a leader. You know why? Because you're tall. You can't take that away. You can't take that away. You're tall. It's like, that's a leader. That's one of the leader qualities. Not to say that you could be, not as tall and still be a leader. Sure, you absolutely can. But this young man probably didn't even have an idea that he had a gift. And it's just, you could see over others. And that's just, if you can see over others, you could point the way. That's how it happened. Imagine in the tribal, landscape where the tall person, because you just see farther, right? And so what I want to just share that with you is that you want to kind of lay out and prioritize and rank in order of importance. And that's going to lead to the next step. Really, step 2 would be writing the goals and how to write those down. I'm going to cover that in the next blog. But for the most part, I want you to just identify and get some clarity in your life vision. And so another exercise that I've done has been quite powerful, and it's to write your narrative down. One of the things I learned as a young man, I took this course through the company I was with. And they said you could write your future narrative now. That we're operating a narrative in a play, so to speak, as what we wrote when we were younger, how we envision ourselves. But you could just change that narrative by just writing it down and changing it. You can. I've seen people change their lives. I've seen them change their narratives. And it starts out by writing it down. And so some of the examples that you could do is, if someone was going to recognize, let's say they built a statue in your name, what would they say about you 40 years from now, 50 years from now? Or let's say it's at your wake and your friends are going to say something. What would you want them to say? And I've written the eulogy for myself. And it's funny that once I write that eulogy, I then started to adhere to the eulogy, right? I wrote down, things that I wanted, how I wanted to impact my wife, my family. And as I wrote that eulogy down, or that statement for doing, a dedication of a statue in your name, I started to operate in that fashion. It's interesting, but it impacted me because it gave me a narrative that I could follow. And I think that's how you could change your own narrative, You can just write down a new narrative. Or you don't like who you are right now. It's not necessarily, working from you. It's you could change that narrative. You could change it by writing it down. No matter where, if you're in the prison to the palace, you could change your narrative. It doesn't, it doesn't matter. I changed my narrative. If you saw where I grew up, right, you probably wouldn't believe it. If you saw where I grew up, I had 5 of my friends murdered. I was, close to being killed behind the school one time. I beat up, 7 guys I've been shot at. It's like multiple times. I had one time, even after I was older, it's crazy. Bullet stops the car, right? I mean, the car stops the bullet is what I'm saying. And so, you have a destiny, right? You have a destiny to fulfill. And that destiny starts at that desire. They say the desire is of the Father, desire, like Father, of the Father. For the desires that you have, they come from the Father. And then these desires that are placed in you. And you may say, hey, I don't necessarily know what my desires are. It's just I haven't been listening. You haven't been listening. You have some good skill sets. You have some, good training. You got to have great experience. And that's a pointer, your potential is a pointer to your destiny, right? Or I would say your skill set, shoots you to your future, and, give you guidance for your future. It's not, that's why I work with folks and I do this assessment. Talk about it a lot of times because it's important to find what your skills are, what you're good at. Right, first and foremost. But when you write that down, another exercise that you could do if you like, and I've done it so many times, is I write 100 things I do well. And I've done that myself. When I feel down and I don't feel like I'm in the right place, I write down 100 things that I do well. And you'd be surprised. You can ask people to help you. And hey, I'm a mechanic. I cook. I just start write down these things that I do well, right? And so this is so important when you're writing your narrative. Is really it'll help articulate the vision of your life, and really it'll help align your daily activity long term. So write this. Imagine someone dedicating a statue. What would they say about your character, your achievements, your contributions, and reflect on how you want to be remembered, right? You're going to leave a legacy. You're going to leave an inheritance, right? A good man or woman leaves an inheritance to his children's children. No matter what, we're creating legacy, whether it's good or bad. You have to know that there's a legacy being built by your action, who you are as a person. You could change that and create a great legacy. And so step 5, I want you to craft a personal life vision statement. And it's just a simple statement that captures the essence of your life in a single phrase. And some examples, it's to it could be give you an ideal family focused vision statement, to be a loving and supportive spouse or parent, creating a home filled with faith, joy, and opportunity for personal growth. Or impact-driven vision statement, to inspire and uplift others by creating solutions that solve meaningful problems and leaves a lasting legacy on the world. I think that is really, really close to mine. I crafted one is that I invent unique and complicated business systems that produce consistent solutions so that the people involved experience fruitfulness and productivity without consuming their lives. And I think that's my personal life vision is, and I've done that. So in fact, this podcast is about creating systems that bring fruitfulness and productivity to others. And so, you could have, another, community-oriented vision to be a catalyst for positive change in my community. And I've heard that with so many people, using my skills and resources to address needs and promote unity. And so it's important for you to have a personal life vision statement and something that you could really just write down at the end of this, just a small little statement. I know it doesn't have to be perfect. It just, you'll improve it over time. You just get better over time. And so, you want to integrate this clarity into your life. And it's clarity isn't just one-time exercise. It's a continual process of aligning your thoughts, your actions, your goals with your vision and your faith. And so I recommend you do this once a year. Do this exercise once a year. You can just go to a coffee shop, pull out the page. What do I want? What do I don't want? Hey, what I suggest is having a binder just for this, for your goals, right? Or a journal just for your goals that you could review what you wrote down last year. If I showed you it, I have my goals written down since 1993. And my wife's goals too, and it's surprisingly that she accomplished things, amazing things when we wrote these things down. And so I share this with your spouse, with your partner. Write these things down. Take time over this holiday, any holiday. Just go down to a coffee shop and just start to write these things that I'm talking about. And so revisit your list and your vision statement, and it's going to help you focus on your growth. And you want to, surround yourself with people who uplift you and share your values. You don't want people who pull you down or laugh at you or think you're this or that. You want people who are actually working on their goals too. And the key thing in your desires, let it reflect your core beliefs. Let it reflect your action, and let it bring honor to God. What I'm saying is that it brings good on the earth, right? If you go down and let's say you're going to pour out crude oil on the ground, I don't think it's good. I don't think it honors God. It ruins the environment, right? You don't want to do that. The same thing. You don't throw your garbage out the window while you're driving, or a bottle, right? Because you want your core beliefs to just reflect everything that you do. You walk as a king, as I say, walk as a king, and you channel your activity to produce meaningful contributions to others, where you impact the community. This is the thing that produces these type of people impact the world. These type of people that write down, they have an idea of who they are, what they want. They impact the world positively, and so they just don't happen. I don't know if you ever noticed. There's never a statue of a committee, right? It's never a statue of 3, 4, 5 people. No, it's a statue of one person. Because it takes one person to make the change. One person makes the difference. And so when you write this down, it'll help you overcome challenges, and it'll anchor yourself into trials. It'll anchor yourself as to, when you get tempted, let's say there's a temptation, and for males, married males, there could be that temptation. You look at that legacy that you want to leave, and that'll protect you. That'll help you walk out, right? Walk out the room, walk out the Starbucks, walk out. This is what will help you put a plumb line, so to speak. And you say to yourself, hey, you ain't going to cross it. And if you think you're going to cross it, you just grab yourself and you pull yourself away. And that's what has to be done. There's temptations galore. I mean, hey, business owners, so many temptations that just, financial, this, that, you could, insult someone. It's just so many things that can happen. And so this will help anchor you in your clarity, give you, let you be more centered. And if you're more centered, you'll be happier. You'll be more at peace. And that's the whole thing with refining your vision, getting it down on paper, is really to help you, guide you in your meditation, guide you in your prayers. And just want to say, life is unpredictable. And the beautiful thing is, as you operate, being flexible, because when you write those things down, you can be flexible. You can be flexible. And I want to always say, celebrate the small wins that you have. When you write those goals down and you have them accomplished, celebrate those small wins. And so crafting a personal life vision is the foundation of, building a personal power plan. See, that personal power plan is going to fit into your business plan. Yeah, I'm getting somewhere with this. I am, because I have to work all the time. I got to work with the business owners in their mindset first. I got to work with who they are, what they want, how they feel themselves. Because if they're not stable, they're just going to produce an unstable business. So I got to help them first, personally. And the number one thing I tell people is, like, who's the number one person in your life when I start working with business owners? And you know what they usually say? It's my wife. It's, especially the religious folks, it's God. God is number one in my life. Sure he is. And the fact of the matter is, you have to be, yourself have to be number one. And the reason why there's so many people dependent on you. I'm number one in my life. I got to take care of my health. I got to take care of what I'm eating. Hey, if I feel a little stressed, I go out to the woods. I'm going out. I'm just going out. If I got to go to mental health day, see you later. I'm tired. I take a nap. I'm going to take care of this person. I'm going to take care of this person. Number one, you take care of that person first. And so, so what, we're going somewhere with this whole thing. And, but by uncovering the true desires and identifying your distractions and the barriers, articulating your vision and aligning your vision with who you are, it's going to help you create a more fulfilling and impactful life. And that's what we all want. We want a more impactful life. And so, so my question is, what are your deepest desires that God has placed in your heart? Think about that. What's your deepest, number one desire that God has placed in your heart? Second, and what is the biggest distraction that you need to remove to live out your vision? So those are some really, really hard questions. Just remember the Proverbs, a man's heart plans his ways, but the Lord directs his steps, and the Lord will direct you, right? And you just listening to this, podcast is a way to gain direction. And God is speaking to us in multiple ways. The world is just coming, and, whatever we desire, it just happens. It just comes to us. So many examples. I could share that with you. So I want to thank you for, listening to this podcast. And, if it's been helpful, I ask you to subscribe to this podcast. It's on Spotify, iHeart, many other of the channels out there, in YouTube, especially YouTube. So I ask you, follow me on YouTube. Please leave a comment. We're going to be creating a kind of a Facebook group to kind of get your input as to what the next steps are, and we're going to be doing some basic mentorship programs, and we want to see what topics you folks would be interested in. And so what, your journey to clarity, just to say this, your journey to clarity starts today. It starts now, and you can transform your life. Just a simple decision will transform your life. And so, again, I want to thank you for listening to this podcast. And until we meet again, thank you so much.